A man has been dead for 4 days, sealed in a tomb, his body already beginning to decay, and then he walked out, alive. You'd think that would make him the first person in the Bible to be raised from the dead. It's not even close. By the time this miracle happens, it's not the first resurrection in Scripture. It's not even the first one Jesus had already performed. So why does the raising of Lazarus get remembered as the greatest of Jesus' miracles? Why does the church put this story front and center in weeks before Easter? And what does it actually tell us about who Jesus is? Stick with me, because today we're walking through the story of Lazarus, the friend Jesus loved, the tomb that couldn't hold him, and the words that Catholics still hear at nearly every funeral mass. I am the resurrection and the life. Let's clear something up first because it matters. In the Old Testament, the prophet Elijah raises a widow's son back to life in 1 Kings 17. The prophet Elisha does the same for the Shunammite woman's son in 2 Kings 4. There's even a strange little detail in 2 Kings 13 where a dead man is thrown into Elisha's grave, touches his bones, and comes back to life. And within the Gospels themselves, before Lazarus, Jesus had already raised 2 other people. He raised the daughter of a synagogue official named Jairus, found in Mark chapter 5 and Luke chapter 18, and he raised a widow's only son in the town of Nain in Luke chapter 7, stopping a funeral procession in its tracks. So Lazarus isn't the first resurrection story in Scripture. Not even the first one Jesus performs. But here's the difference, and it's the whole reason this story hits so much harder. Jairus' daughter had just died minutes earlier. The son at Nain was being carried out for burial that same day. Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. In the culture of the first century Judea, there was a belief that the soul lingered near the body for 3 days before departing for good. 4 days meant it was truly, unmistakably over. Martha will say it plainly later in the story. There will already be a bad smell. This isn't a miracle of quick timing. This is a miracle over decay itself. That's the hook. Keep it in your mind as we go. Before we get to the tomb, we need the relationship. Because the story doesn't work as pure spectacle. It only works because of love. Lazarus lived in Bethany, a small village just outside Jerusalem, with his 2 sisters, Martha and Mary. This household appears to have been one of very few places where Jesus could simply rest. Luke's gospel already shows us Martha bustling around serving a meal while Mary sits at Jesus' feet listening to him teach. A home Jesus visited often enough that the sisters felt comfortable being fully themselves around him. When Lazarus falls ill, the sisters don't send a formal request. They send this message: Lord, the one you love is sick. Not our brother, not even his name, just the one you love. That's how confident they were of the bond. And John's gospel, when it describes Jesus' reaction at the tomb, it uses one of the most human lines in the entire New Testament. Jesus wept. Not Jesus performed a sign. Not Jesus prepared a miracle. He wept. Fully God. And here, fully grieving. For a friend in front of a crowd, knowing full well what he was about to do next. Catholic tradition has always leaned into this detail. It's proof that Christ's divinity didn't erase his humanity. He didn't skip past sorrow to get to the miracle. He entered into it. Here's the part that unsettles people every time they read it. When Jesus gets word that Lazarus is sick, he doesn't rush to Bethany. He stays where he is for 2 more days. By the time he arrives, Lazarus had already been dead and buried for 4 days. Martha meets him on the road outside the village, and her first words are almost an accusation. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. You can hear the grief and the confusion in it. Mary, when she comes out to him, says the exact same sentence. This wasn't a passing thought. The sisters had clearly said this to each other over and over in the days since Lazarus died. But Jesus had already told his disciples why he waited. This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God. The delay wasn't neglect. It was preparation for something bigger than a quick recovery. The Catholic reading here is important. God's timing is not our timing. And the silence we sometimes experience in prayer is not the same as absence. And then comes the line that the whole story turns on. Standing with Martha, grieving, Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? This is one of the 7 great I am statements in John's Gospel, deliberately echoing the divine name God gave Moses at the burning bush. I am who am. Jesus isn't saying he can perform a resurrection. He's saying he is resurrection itself. Not a power he borrows, something he is. Martha's answer is one of the strongest confessions of faith in the entire Bible. Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. She says this before she has seen her brother raised. That's the theological weight the church leans on. Faith that precedes the miracle, not faith that only follows proof. Now the scene itself. Jesus arrives at the tomb, a cave with a stone laid across the entrance, the standard burial practice of the time. He asks for the stone to be taken away. Martha, ever practical, warns him about the smell. 4 days is 4 days. Jesus prays aloud, not for his own benefit, but for the crowd around him, so that they would believe the Father had sent him. And then, in front of everyone, he cries out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And he does. Bound hand and foot in burial cloths, face wrapped, Lazarus walks out of the tomb under his own power. Jesus' final instruction is almost startlingly practical. Unbind him and let him go. There's no incantation here, no ritual, just a command, spoken to a man 4 days dead and obeyed instantly. Every gospel miracle shows Jesus' authority over nature, sickness, even demons, but this is authority over death itself, exercised as easily as giving an order. So why does the church treat this as one of the most important moments before the Passion? First, it's the last and greatest of the signs in John's Gospel before Jesus' own arrest. It's the clearest preview in someone else's body of what's about to happen in his own tomb. Lazarus still had to die again one day. Jesus' own resurrection, coming just chapters later, would be final. The first fruits of a resurrection that death itself could never reverse. Second, this miracle is what directly triggers the plot against Jesus' life. Right after this scene, John tells us the religious leaders began actively planning to kill him, precisely because so many people were coming to believe on an account of this sign. In a strange way, raising Lazarus is one of the direct causes leading to Calvary. Life given to one man becomes part of the road to the death and resurrection of the God who gave it. And third, this is why the Catholic Church reads this gospel passage at funeral masses again and again. Not as a nice story about a miracle 2,000 years ago, but as a promise. I am the resurrection and the life is spoken over every Catholic funeral because the Church believes the same voice that called Lazarus out of the tomb is the voice that will one day call every believer by name. That's the real hook of this story. Not that Lazarus was first. He wasn't. It's that his resurrection was the clearest sign yet of a much bigger resurrection to come. Christ's own. And Catholics believe ours. If you found this breakdown helpful, let me know in the comments what gospel story you'd like to cover next. Thank you for listening. Until next time.